Usually when society wants to guarantee a baseline of safety or like competence in any professional field, we rely on a highly rigid, highly visible system of verification.
Right, like a credentialing system.
Exactly. If you want to wire a house as an electrician, you study a manual, you take a standardized exam, and a governing board issues a physical piece of paper.
Yeah, and society then looks at that stamped certificate, and we collectively agree that, you are authorized to operate within that field.
Right, without burning a building to the ground.
Because the consequences of failure in those mechanical or physical fields are immediately observable in the material world. I mean, a poorly wired house catches fire.
Yeah, it's completely objective.
Exactly. A poorly constructed bridge collapses under the weight of traffic. So we demand visible, bureaucratic proof of competence because the stakes are grounded entirely in physical reality. The failure states are universally recognized.
But the entire dynamic just completely fractures the moment you step outside the physical and into the realm of ancient spiritual practices.
Oh, absolutely it does.
We are currently looking at a modern wellness landscape that tries to apply the precise logic of like a standardized math test to the infinite invisible expanse of human consciousness.
And it creates a massive diagnostic and professional void.
Right.
When the ultimate goal of a practice is no longer fixing a broken bone or, balancing a corporate ledger or wiring a kitchen, but rather fundamentally transcending the boundaries of human reality itself. The bureaucratic machinery has no mechanism to measure that.
Yeah, it's fundamentally broken.
You are basically asking a system designed to measure matter to somehow weigh the soul.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a relatively short but incredibly provocative piece of source material for you today that attacks this exact contradiction.
It's a really fascinating document.
It is. It's a transcript from a video uploaded by a creator who goes by the name Osman the Blind Yogi. And the central question posed by his video strikes at the very foundation of an industry worth billions of dollars.
Which is, what is the true measure of a qualified yoga teacher?
Exactly. Today, we're taking a sledgehammer to the modern wellness industry's idea of certification. We are exploring a radical ancient perspective on what yoga is actually designed to do and who genuinely has the authority to teach it. Okay, let's unpack this because Osman doesn't just disagree with the curriculum of modern yoga certifications.
No, he goes way further than that.
Yeah, he completely dismantles the philosophical premise that they can even exist in the first place.
To navigate this argument structurally, we need to begin by examining the highly unusual vantage point of the speaker himself.
Right, we have to know who is making these claims.
Exactly. Osman's self-described credentials establish a very specific framework for his critique. From there, we can analyze the dimensional logic behind his rejection of the modern certification process.
And then finally, we'll deconstruct this brilliant analogy he uses to illustrate how humanity is currently misusing these ancient technologies. But before we can evaluate his message, we really have to look at how he positions himself as the messenger.
Yeah, his introduction is quite something.
It really is. In the very opening of our source material, Osman introduces himself with a list of capabilities that instantly pull the conversation out of the mundane world.
He doesn't hold back at all.
No. He states, quite matter-of-factly, I'm an energy healer on a master level with telepathic capabilities.
Which is a massive claim to make right out of the gate.
Right. And he then specifies that he works in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
Yes. Before mentioning he is also an advanced level yoga and meditation teacher.
And he also directs viewers to his website, which is yoganist786.com.
So he is establishing an operational framework that claims direct intervention in the most extreme physical crises.
Like terminal illness.
Exactly. Terminal illness, but using entirely non-physical, metaphysical mechanisms like telepathy and bioenergy.
It's a huge leap from your standard yoga studio bio.
It is, and for the purpose of our analysis, we are just evaluating the internal logic of this framework. He is positioning himself not merely as a philosopher of wellness, but as an active practitioner, operating at the absolute threshold of life and death.
Yeah, utilizing tools that mainstream allopathic medicine considers totally outside its paradigm. But what immediately caught my attention in the text wasn't just the magnitude of those claims. It was the extreme tonal shift that happens mere seconds later.
Yes, the disclaimer.
Right. Right after claiming telepathic intervention for terminal diseases, Osman issues an incredibly strict, standardized medical disclaimer.
It sounds like it was written by a corporate lawyer.
Literally.
Yeah.
He explicitly states that his therapies are all natural-based and not a replacement for medical treatment. and he insists that anyone with a medical condition must consult with a licensed and qualified medical professional in your locality.
What's fascinating here is how that disclaimer functions as a philosophical boundary line rather than just a legal shield.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, because a superficial reading might view it as hedging, right? Making a massive supernatural claim and then retreating behind the safety of modern liability language.
But covering his bases so he doesn't get sued.
Exactly, but fundamentally, it actually delineates two completely separate domains of human existence. He is acknowledging the jurisdiction of the physical mechanic, the medical doctor, over the physical biology of the disease.
Wait, so how does a listener reconcile this? On one hand, he's talking about telepathic critical care, and on the other, he's saying, check with your local doctor. Does this make him more credible or less?
Well, the duality actually reflects the very nature of what he teaches. He operates under the premise that a terminal illness has a physical manifestation, which the doctor treats, and an energetic or transcendental blueprint, which he claims to treat.
Okay, I see. So he isn't asking listeners to abandon modern medicine.
Not at all. By explicitly deferring to the medical professional for the physical symptoms, he isn't contradicting his own claims. He is cementing the idea that his expertise operates in a dimension that allopathic medicine simply cannot access.
He is offering a parallel system.
Precisely. It grounds his highly elevated spiritual claims in a pragmatic, real-world framework. He respects the doctor's lane, and he expects you to respect his.
He is basically saying, if the physical machine of your body is breaking down, go see the licensed mechanic for the machine.
Right.
But he is simultaneously carving out a completely separate, sovereign territory for his own practice.
And this parallel system is crucial to understanding everything else he says in the text. He honors the rules of the physical dimension. He clearly respects the validity of a medical certificate when it comes to practicing physical medicine.
Right, because a doctor needs a license because the doctor operates in the material world.
Yes, exactly.
But when he turns his attention to his own industry, the world of yoga and meditation, his reaction to their physical certificates is absolutely brutal.
Brutal is the right word. He describes the proliferation of formal yoga certifications as laughable and funny.
Yeah, though he notes he isn't saying it to be offensive.
No, he says it's for the sake of clarity. But dismissing a multi-billion-dollar credentialing apparatus as a joke requires a formidable philosophical justification.
And he definitely provides one. It's essentially a structural impossibility.
Yes, the dimensional argument.
He states, and this is a quote, "The certification of a yoga and meditation teacher cannot be had through a formal written certificate because yoga and meditation is yet to transcend this dimension."
Right.
He goes on to say, so you can't get a certification in this dimension. This dimensional argument is really the bedrock of his entire critique.
If we analyze the core of his argument, he is defining the original science of yoga and meditation exclusively as a mechanism for dimensional transcendence.
The objective is to move human consciousness beyond the observable constraints of matter, space, and linear time.
Yes, the third dimension. And a formal written certificate, by its very nature, is an artifact of the third dimension.
Right, it's a physical object.
It is made of matter, it occupies physical space, and it degrades over time. You cannot use a 3D object to verify mastery over something that is fundamentally non-3D.
It's like walking into a local DMV and asking the clerk for an astral projection license.
That is a perfect analogy.
I mean, the DMV has regulatory authority over physical vehicles on physical asphalt roads.
Oh.
It entirely lacks the jurisdictional authority, the tools of measurement, and the fundamental understanding required to regulate consciousness traveling outside the physical body.
And what Osman is saying is that the modern yoga industry has essentially attempted to build a DMV for the infinite.
Wow. Yeah.
We have established these governing bodies and certification boards that print physical pieces of paper to certify mastery over a practice whose sole original purpose was to escape the very physical reality where that paper holds value.
Is a profound category error.
Exactly.
When you break down the logic like that, the humor he finds in it totally makes sense. Society is so desperate to commodify and categorize everything that we've tried to, like, put a barcode on enlightenment.
Yes, we want a 200-hour or a 500-hour stamp of approval so we feel like we've purchased a standardized, safe product. This raises an important question concerning how we evaluate authority in any esoteric field.
Yeah, because if a paper certificate is useless, what do we look for?
Right. If the bureaucratic system of credentialing is a structural failure for measuring spiritual attainment, what replaces it? Because an industry devoid of any benchmarks just devolves into chaos.
Right, a situation where literally any individual can claim ultimate mastery without any pushback.
Yes. But Osman does not advocate for this kind of unregulated chaos at all. He introduces a radically different, uncompromising benchmark.
Yeah, according to the source material, the only valid certification, the true measure of a qualified yoga teacher, is attaining a state called Samadhi.
Yes, Samadhi.
He states, your certification is once you can attain Samadhi, then that is your certificate right. And he really clarifies this isn't just like a one-time accidental experience.
Yeah, it must be attained multiple times. It has to be a state you can access and reproduce.
While the text doesn't explicitly outline the precise physiological mechanics of Samadhi, within the context of his dimensional argument, it clearly represents the absolute pinnacle of the practice.
It is the actual realization of that transcendental state. It is the destination.
Osman is drawing an absolute line in the sand here.
He really is.
If a practitioner has not repeatedly reached this state of dimensional transcendence, they possess no legitimate authority to call themselves a teacher of the science.
And if we applied that standard to the global wellness industry today, the vast majority of studios would be instantly disqualified.
Literally overnight.
Yeah.
But that creates an immediate, very practical problem for the student, right?
How so?
Well, if the teacher doesn't have a paper certificate on the wall, if we've thrown those all in the trash,
Yeah.
how does a novice walking off the street identify someone who has actually attained Samadhi?
Ah, yes.
Osman provides very specific conversational markers to look for.
He does. The first marker is epistemological. He says, a true master will be able to give you that knowledge from a perspective that is not in books, right? It's nowhere written.
Okay, so it has to be unwritten.
Yes. This fundamentally separates the scholar from the actual practitioner.
Because a scholar can read every ancient yogic text, memorize the Sanskrit, and perfectly recite the history of the practice.
Yeah.
But they are essentially reading a map drawn by someone else entirely. They can describe the map in incredible detail, but they haven't actually walked the territory themselves.
That's spot on. The knowledge generated from a state of samadhi is purely experiential. It must be generated from direct contact with that transcendent dimension.
So if a teacher relies solely on referencing external texts or quoting other masters, they are merely a historian of the science, not a master of its execution.
Right. And the second marker he provides builds directly on this. He says they will seem to have very high and deep levels of understanding and explanation of various concepts that you haven't heard of before.
So they're bringing back entirely new data from this other dimension.
Exactly. When an individual speaks from a vantage point that is outside the normal boundaries of human perception, the frameworks they introduce will naturally sound entirely novel to us.
Because they are trying to explain the unexplainable.
Yes, they are attempting to use third-dimensional language, English in our case, to describe a multi-dimensional experience, which inevitably results in profound paradigm-shifting concepts that basically shatter our mundane understanding of reality.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me, and honestly, potentially hazardous for the seeker.
Okay, well on.
If a teacher is standing in front of an audience, speaking confidently about concepts that aren't found in any books, introducing incredibly wild, novel ideas, how does a student verify that this isn't just an elaborate fabrication?
That's the danger, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, a charismatic fraud also speaks about things not found in books. They make things up.
Yeah.
How do you protect yourself from a fraud who is just, stringing cool-sounding words together to sound enlightened? The absence of a governing body leaves the door wide open for manipulation.
It's a very valid concern. But Osman anticipates the vulnerability of an unwritten tradition. He doesn't ask the listener to blindly trust anyone who sounds profound or charismatic. He explicitly states that a true teacher is not there to make a claim and start charging a fee due to that claim. He introduces a mechanism of verification that completely strips away the reliance on charisma.
And what is that?
That mechanism is reproducibility.
Ah, okay. Let's look closer at his specific requirement for a teacher's duty then. He states they must be able to take multiple peoples, having found a practical pathway himself, to teach the pathway that worked for him and to others who wants to, follow that pathway.
The phrase practical pathway is absolutely vital here. It introduces a rigorous, almost scientific methodology to mysticism.
Right.
The duty of the master isn't simply to achieve transcendence and then eloquently describe the view from the mountaintop to a crowd of adoring fans.
It's not just a TED Talk.
Exactly. The duty is to reverse engineer the ascent. They must document their own internal protocol step by step, breath by breath, and then successfully guide a student through that exact same protocol.
And crucially, the protocol has to yield the exact same result for the student. Osman says it must work for the other people as well, right?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is essentially Karl Popper's concept of falsifiability applied to spiritual attainment.
Tell me more about that.
In the scientific method, a hypothesis must be testable and capable of being proven false. Osman is demanding the exact same rigor here.
Okay, so if I do the steps and nothing happens.
Then the pathway is falsified. If a student strictly follows the teacher's practical pathway and fails to attain Samadhi, the teacher's claim to mastery is invalidated.
Wow.
The burden of proof shifts entirely from the authority of a physical paper certificate to the empirical results experienced by the student.
It's a pure meritocracy of transformation. In the modern credentialing model, the power resides in the piece of paper. The paper grants authority regardless of whether the students ever experience a profound shift in consciousness.
Right.
But Osman completely inverts this power dynamic. Your authority only exists if your students actually transcend.
And what further strengthens his framework is his inclusivity regarding the mechanics of these pathways. He acknowledges the diversity of the human nervous system.
Oh, that's right, because not everyone operates the same way.
Exactly. He notes in the transcript, so there's different kinds of teacher who had the experience through different pathways. So they each individually teaching their own pathways.
He actually uses his own background as an example for this. He states, I was fortunate enough to learn the science from multiple pathways and multiple teachers, multiple experts, and attain success in many of these pathways, and I'm able to teach it.
Yes. He recognizes that the protocol for transcendence is not monolithic. One practitioner might require intense pranayama, which is breath work, to alter their physiological state.
While another might require deep stillness-based meditation.
Right. And another might utilize specific frequencies of sound or chanting. The practical pathway can vary drastically depending on the architect, but the resulting destination, that state of samadhi, must remain absolutely consistent and verifiable.
So, if we accept this framework, that the ultimate goal of yoga is dimensional transcendence, and the only valid teacher is one who can empirically reproduce that state in others, we are forced to confront the reality of the modern wellness industry.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
Right. What is actually happening in the thousands of yoga studios operating around the globe today?
Osman delivers a staggering assessment of the industry. He claims that the majority, over 90%, is teaching mundane levels of yoga and meditation.
Over 90%. That's almost the entire industry. And he defines these mundane levels quite specifically. He says they are just to teach you flexibility and improving your health.
The use of the word mundane here requires really careful analysis.
Because most people wouldn't call health mundane.
Exactly. In the context of modern society, improving physical health, lowering cortisol levels, gaining flexibility, these are universally viewed as premium, highly desirable outcomes. The global healthcare apparatus spends trillions of dollars attempting to achieve these exact results.
Right. People pay a lot of money to not have back pain.
But within Osman's specific framework, a framework calibrated entirely toward dimensional transcendence. Health and flexibility are inherently mundane because they are still bound to the temporary physical form.
So he is not arguing that physical health is a negative outcome.
No, not at all.
He is analyzing the original architectural intent behind the science of yoga. He says, I haven't studied yoga sciences from the original books, and the original teachers say, practice yoga. You're going to become healthier, you're going to be able to think better, your relationship's going to improve.
He categorizes those universally desired benefits, the physical vitality, the mental clarity, the relational harmony, explicitly as mere side effects.
The audacity of calling physical health a side effect is staggering to me.
It really reframes the whole conversation.
It does. The very things that 90% of the modern world consider to be the entire primary purpose of practicing yoga, Osman just dismisses as the incidental byproducts of a much larger, much more profound cosmic mechanism.
It is a radical realignment of purpose. He is arguing that the ancient architects of these technologies are interested in taking you to the transcendental to transcend this dimension. They are like 1,000 steps ahead, right?
Wow.
They were engineering a vehicle for the evolution of human consciousness, and we are over here using it as a stress management seminar.
And because the gap between the ancient intent and the modern application is so vast, Osman uses this amazing analogy that perfectly isolates the tragedy of this misunderstood potential.
This might be my favorite part of the text.
It's so good. He says, we are still trying to use such a philosophy for something small. It's like you're taking your smartphone and you don't know how to use it and using it as a spade to dig up sand in your backyard.
By spade, he means a spade, a shovel.
Right. Using a highly advanced smartphone as a shovel to dig dirt.
It highlights the absolute absurdity of utilizing highly complex technology for a primitive task simply out of total ignorance of the technology's true capabilities.
Let's really think about that for a second. Consider the engineering contained within a smartphone. It can access the sum total of human knowledge. It can process billions of calculations a second. It connects instantaneously to a global network of satellites.
It is a pinnacle of human achievement.
Right.
Yeah.
And the modern consumer takes this miraculous device into the backyard, grips it by the edges, and starts scooping dirt with it.
And the tragic irony is that it will actually function as a shovel.
Yeah.
It has a flat surface, it has rigid edges. It will successfully move the sand if the user possesses absolutely no concept of satellite networks or cellular data. They will be completely satisfied with their incredibly sleek, highly expensive glass shovel.
That is exactly it. They'll say, this is the best shovel I've ever owned.
Yes. And this is the exact mechanism of his critique against modern yoga. The postures, the breath work, the meditative states, these are the smartphones.
Yeah.
They are highly advanced spiritual technologies designed by ancient masters to connect the human nervous system to the satellite network of a higher dimension.
But because the modern industry lacks the practical pathway to the network, because the teachers themselves have only ever known the physical dimension, they instruct their students to use the technology as a shovel.
Exactly.
They use it to dig up a little bit of physical flexibility or to shovel away a bit of daily anxiety. They're utilizing the technology for something small. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who just spent an hour on a yoga mat stretching your lower back? Is Osman suggesting that finding physical relief through these ancient practices is foolish or a waste of time?
Not at all. Digging the dirt is often necessary. Physical pain requires alleviation. The side effects are genuine and they are beneficial.
Your back feels better. That's a good thing.
Right. However, his critique implies a profound tragedy of underutilized potential. It means that while you are finding relief in the sand, you are leaving 99% of the tool's true capability completely dormant.
You are settling for a fractional, earthbound benefit from a science that was engineered for the infinite.
And perhaps more importantly, the person instructing you on how to dig the dirt, the person with the 200-hour certification hanging on the studio wall, should not be elevated to the status of a spiritual master.
Right. They are merely a master of using the smartphone as a shovel.
Precisely. They understand the physical mechanics of the stretch, but they cannot connect you to the network.
Osman is demanding a return to the original scale and ambition of the science. He refuses to allow a profound mechanism for human evolution to be permanently diluted into, a palatable, easily commodified fitness routine.
He insists that a true teacher must possess the experiential mastery of Samadhi and the strict scientific rigor to reproduce it in others.
We have covered an immense amount of philosophical territory today by deconstructing this relatively brief source text.
We really have.
We started by examining the dual nature of Osman's operational framework. A master energy healer claiming telepathic intervention in terminal illnesses while strictly enforcing the jurisdictional boundaries of modern medical professionals over the physical body.
And from that foundation, we analyzed his dimensional argument against the modern credentialing industry. We now understand why a third-dimensional piece of paper is structurally incapable of measuring multidimensional transcendence.
We explored his ultimate benchmark of Samadhi. He defines true knowledge not as the memorization of ancient texts, but as the direct experiential contact with a higher reality.
And we unpacked the rigorous scientific demand for reproducibility, the absolute mandate that a true teacher must provide a practical pathway that verifiably works for the student.
Which entirely shifts the burden of proof from a certificate to the empirical transformation of the practitioner.
Finally, we deconstructed the smartphone and the spade. We examined how the modern wellness industry, representing 90% of current practices, has reduced a technology of transcendence into a mundane tool for physical health,
settling for the side effects while remaining completely ignorant of the primary objective.
It is a framework that forces a deep reevaluation of how we source our knowledge and who we grant authority to in our lives. It asks you, the listener, whether you are learning from individuals who merely passed a standardized exam, or from those who possess lived experiential mastery.
It challenges us to examine the depth of our own daily pursuits. Are we scratching the surface of our potential, content with the most mundane, visible results, when we might possess the tools required for a profound internal evolution?
That's the real question.
And that is the lingering question we want to leave you with today. Osman's analogy of the smartphone being used as a spade is so potent, it extends far beyond the boundaries of a yoga studio.
Oh, absolutely.
If the simple breathing exercises we do just to lower our heart rate were actually engineered as technologies to transcend reality,
Mm.
what other systems in our lives are we completely misunderstanding?
It makes you wonder.
What other advanced capabilities are lying dormant right now because we only know how to use them for primitive tasks? Are we, in the routines of our own daily lives, unknowingly sweeping our floors with magic wands?
If Osman's fundamental premise holds true, the ultimate potential of the human experience cannot be standardized, printed, or hung on a wall. It is a state waiting to be rigorously and practically attained.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been a genuinely mind-bending exploration of Osman's philosophy, offering a completely new lens through which to evaluate the true measure of mastery, not just in wellness, but in any field of human endeavor.
Keep looking beyond the surface.
Until next time, keep questioning the paperwork and keep looking for the practical pathway.